Let's be honest. When you hear the words Book of Revelation, what comes to mind? Probably a lot of images of global chaos, futuristic beasts, and these are really complex charts trying to map out the end of the world. It's usually seen as this deeply confusing book about a distant future. But what if the main message wasn't really about our future at all, but about their present? And this is a big what if. So is that what it is? A kind of cosmic blueprint for the apocalypse? Something far off in the future? Or could it be something else entirely? A message written for a specific group of people living at a specific time and facing a very specific crisis. Well, the book itself gives us our first big clue, and it's right there in the first few verses. Blessed are those who hear and keep what is written in it, for the time is near. Now think about that. The time is near. That is a really weird thing to say if the stuff you're talking about isn't going to happen for thousands of years, right? This is our puzzle. How on earth could a first-century audience understand, let alone keep these words, if they were all about, say, microchips and 21st century politics? Okay, so to solve this puzzle, we've got to do something that's kind of tough. We have to try and read it through their eyes, not ours. We need to figure out who it was written for, and what keys they had to unlock its meaning. So let's lay out the tools we're going to use. Hold right from the text itself. So here's our game plan, our 3-step investigation. First, the audience. Who is this actually for? Second, the timeline. When was it for? And third, the symbols. Where in the world do they come from? This framework is going to be our guide. Alright, step 1, the audience. This is absolutely crucial. This book was sent to real flesh and blood churches in the 1st century, and they were suffering. They were facing intense persecution. So whatever we think it means, it had to mean something to them right then and there. I mean, a message about some far-off Antichrist, thousands of years in the future, that's zero comfort to someone literally facing a Roman sword. The threat had to be real, and it had to be present for them. And that brings us to our third key, which is just a massive one, the symbols. These wild images of beasts and plagues, they didn't just pop out of John's imagination. There are over 500 references to the Old Testament in Revelation. This is the master key, you guys. Everything, the beasts, the judgment, the cosmic language. It's all rooted in scripture that the original audience would have known inside and out. It's like a book that assumes you've already read the whole prequel series. Okay, so we've got the audience in mind. We know where the symbols come from. Now let's tackle our second key. And honestly, this might be the most critical one of all. The timeline. The book doesn't just say the time is near once and move on. It hammers this point home, again and again. It claims to be about things that must soon take place. So what does soon really mean? Let's get a little nerdy for a second and look at the Greek. The word for soon here is takos. And if you look at how it's used all throughout the New Testament, it consistently means exactly what it sounds like. Soon, quickly, right around the corner. It's not some kind of secret code for thousands of years from now in God's cosmic calendar. No, it was a straightforward message for its human audience. Revelation even sets itself up in direct contrast to the book of Daniel. See, Daniel was told to seal up his prophecy, because its fulfillment was way off in the future. But John, he gets the exact opposite instruction. He's told, do not seal up this book. And the reason why is crystal clear, for the time is near. I mean, the text could not be more explicit about how imminent this all was. So if the events were soon, then it really matters when the book was written, right? And the text itself gives us some powerful clues. In chapter 11, for example, the temple in Jerusalem is being measured as if it's still standing. Well, we know for a fact it was destroyed in 70 AD. And then in chapter 17, the vision is placed during the reign of the 6th king. If you count the Roman emperors, who does that land on? Nero, which also puts the writing before 70 AD. Okay, so we have our 3 keys now. We know the audience, we have a timeline, and we know the symbols are from the Old Testament. With all that in place, we can finally tackle the book structure. And this is where so many people get completely lost, trying to line up the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, and the 7 bowls into one long, terrifying timeline of disasters. But what if that's not how the book is built at all? This is the game changer, right here. The structure is not a linear chronology. It's a replay. John wasn't describing one long chain of different events unfolding one after another. He's describing the same period of judgment 3 different times, just from different angles. Think of it like a sports replay. You see the big play happen, right? First, you get the wide-angle shot from the blimp. That's the 7 seals. It gives you the big picture. Then, you see it again, but this time in slow motion from the sideline camera. That's the 7 trumpets. You see more detail. And finally, you get that super close-up high-definition view right in the middle of the action. That's the 7 bowls. Each cycle is retelling the exact same story, the same judgment, just with more intensity and more detail each time. This totally changes how you read the whole book. Okay, so now that we have this framework for century audience, Old Testament symbols, and imminent timeline, and the cyclical structure, we can actually try to solve the book's central mystery. And that mystery is, who or what is Babylon the Great? For centuries, people have debated this. Is it Rome? Is it some future global empire? Well, let's stop guessing and just supply the keys we found and see what the text itself tells us. Alright, let's look at the clues like a detective. First up, Revelation chapter 11 verse 8, straight up identifies this great city as the place where their Lord was crucified. I mean, come on, there is only one city on earth that fits that description, and that's Jerusalem. Then the book calls her a prostitute. That's a really specific word the Old Testament prophets always use for, you guessed it, covenant-breaking Israel. And finally, God's people are told to flee from her, which sounds an awful lot like Jesus' command to his followers to get out of Jerusalem before it was destroyed. And here's the kicker. The number one charge against Babylon is that she is guilty of shedding the blood of the prophets and the saints. This is the exact same accusation that Jesus himself made against the leaders of first-century Jerusalem back in Matthew chapter 23. He even warned them that the guilt for all the righteous bloodshed throughout history would fall on that generation. So, where does our investigation lead us? What's the verdict? All the evidence seems to point in one direction. A book, written before 70 AD to a first-century audience, using Old Testament symbols to describe a judgment that was about to happen to a city identified as Jerusalem. Now, does that mean none of it was real? No, not at all. The symbolic language, stars falling from the sky, mountains crumbling, that was standard issue prophetic language for the collapse of a nation. It was a vivid, poetic way of describing a very real, very brutal historical event. The total destruction of Jerusalem and its temple by the Roman armies in 70 AD. Okay, so let's just quickly recap the key takeaways here. Revelation was written for its original audience. When it said soon, it actually meant soon for them. The structure isn't one long timeline. It's a replay of the same event. Babylon was a symbolic codename for first-century Jerusalem. God used the beast, Rome, to destroy her. And the big picture. God judged unfaithfulness, but he made a way to rescue and preserve his true people through it all. Reading Revelation this way, it changes everything, doesn't it? It shifts the focus from trying to decode today's newspaper headlines to understanding this incredibly powerful story of judgment and salvation in the first century.